The coffee shop was nearly empty that rainy Tuesday afternoon when Marcus heard those words that would change everything. He'd been balancing his laptop on one knee, his daughter Emma's backpack on the other, trying to finish a work email before her dance class ended. The woman sitting across from him, a stranger he'd only exchanged polite smiles with, leaned forward with a mischievous grin and said, "You seem to be good in bed. Are you married?" Marcus froze, his fingers hovering above the keyboard. Heat crept up his neck as he processed what she'd just said. Then he noticed her eyes weren't on him at all, they were fixed on the corner where Emma had been reading her picture book on a beanbag chair. His 5-year-old daughter had somehow convinced another child to help her arrange all the coffee shop's decorative pillows into an elaborate fortress. "You meant good at making beds," Marcus laughed, the tension dissolving from his shoulders. "And no, I'm not married. I'm still waiting." The woman, whose name he'd learned was Rachel, covered her mouth in embarrassment. "Oh my God, I meant your daughter. She's so organized, the way she's arranging everything. I'm so sorry, that came out so wrong." They both laughed then, and Rachel's cheeks flushed crimson. She explained she was a kindergarten teacher, always noticing how children interacted with their environment. Marcus introduced himself, mentioning he was a single dad, and something unspoken passed between them in that moment, a recognition of kindness, of genuine human connection in a world that often felt too busy for such things. "Still waiting for what?" Rachel asked gently, stirring her coffee. Marcus glanced at Emma, who was now sharing her crayons with a younger boy who'd wandered over. "For the right time, I guess. For when I can be the father Emma deserves and the partner someone else deserves. Right now, I'm just trying to be enough for her." 3 years earlier, Marcus's world had shattered when his wife Sarah died in a car accident. Emma had been only too young to understand why mommy wasn't coming home. The grief had been suffocating, but every morning, Emma's little face, those eyes so much like Sarah's, gave him a reason to breathe. He'd left his demanding consulting job, found remote work that paid less but gave him flexibility, and rebuilt his life around his daughter. The "still waiting" had become his mantra. Friends tried setting him up. His mother gently suggested Emma needed a maternal figure. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that jumping into something new would somehow diminish what he'd had, or worse, shortchange Emma during these precious early years when she needed him most. Rachel visited the coffee shop the following week at the same time. Then the week after that. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. She told him about her own losses, a fiancé who'd left her at the altar, a father she'd cared for through Parkinson's before he passed. She understood that grief wasn't something you got over, it was something you learned to carry differently. Emma adored her. Rachel never tried to be anything other than Miss Rachel, the nice lady who knew all the best stories and could draw horses that actually looked like horses. She never overstepped, never tried to parent, just showed up with genuine warmth and interest in their lives. One afternoon, about 2 months into their friendship, Emma got sick at school. Marcus was in an important meeting he couldn't leave, and his usual emergency contacts were unavailable. Without hesitation, he called Rachel. She left her own classroom in the hands of her assistant and picked Emma up, taking her to Marcus's apartment, keeping her comfortable and entertained until he could get there. He arrived to find Rachel reading Charlotte's Web, aloud while Emma dozed on the couch, fever finally broken. The apartment was tidied, soup was simmering on the stove, and for the first time since Sarah's death, the space felt like a home instead of just a place where they existed. "You didn't have to do all this," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Rachel closed the book carefully. "I know. I wanted to." That night, after Emma was properly tucked in, Marcus and Rachel sat on the apartment's small balcony. The city lights twinkled below them, and Marcus finally voiced the fear that had kept him frozen for 3 years. "What if I'm not ready? What if I mess this up? What if bringing someone into our lives hurts Emma more than helps her?" Rachel was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you what I see? I see a man who reorganized his entire life around his daughter's needs. Who takes her to dance class every Tuesday even though you hate being late to work meetings. Who lets her build pillow forts in public places because her joy matters more than what strangers think. You're not waiting to be ready, Marcus. You're already everything she needs. The question is, what do you need?" The words cracked something open inside him. He'd been so focused on being enough for Emma that he'd forgotten he was allowed to want something for himself. That maybe, just maybe, opening his heart again wasn't a betrayal of the past but an honoring of it. Sarah had loved him fiercely, and she would have wanted him to find happiness again, to show Emma what healthy love looked like. I'm scared, he admitted. Me too, Rachel whispered. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the best things are a little scary. 6 months later, on a Tuesday afternoon in that same coffee shop, Emma was helping a new child arrange pillows into a fortress. Marcus and Rachel sat together, their hands intertwined on the table between them, watching the children play. The journey hadn't been perfect, there had been difficult conversations, moments of doubt, tears from Emma when she thought accepting Rachel meant forgetting her mother. But Marcus had learned that the heart doesn't have a finite capacity for love. Emma could love her mother's memory and open herself to new people. He could honor his past and embrace his future. The waiting he'd spoken of hadn't been about timing at all, it had been about healing, about becoming whole enough to let someone in without losing himself in the process. I'm glad I'm not waiting anymore, Marcus said quietly. Rachel squeezed his hand. I'm glad you were waiting for exactly the right moment. For exactly this. In a world that often rushed people through their grief, that suggested moving on meant forgetting, Marcus had discovered a different truth. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is wait, not passively, but actively, doing the hard work of healing, of becoming whole again. And sometimes, when we stop waiting for the perfect moment and start recognizing the beautiful ones right in front of us, we discover that love doesn't diminish when shared. It multiplies, creating something entirely new while honoring everything that came before. Emma looked up from her pillow fortress and waved at them, her smile bright enough to light the whole room. And in that simple gesture, Marcus saw what he'd been searching for all along. Not a replacement for what he'd lost, but a continuation of the love that had always been there, just waiting for him to be brave enough to let it grow.